got to do something first, so I've got to put these on. I heard yesterday that smart glasses are replacing smartphones by 5 years' time. So I actually chucked my iPhone in the canal last night, and I'm going to try and wear these. I'm not going to wear these, partly because I can't see anything, partly because I always assume if someone's wearing these indoors, that they're either a celebrity or they're an asshole. And there's a whole room full of people going, well, he's not famous. So he must be. No. So I'm Stuart. I'm from Music Ally. Not the app. We don't have a community of 12-year-olds dancing. We are a Music Ally, a music industry research and consultancy. We do journalism, we do training and stuff. And I'm here writing this up, and I'm also here now. So we have a panel. We have Emmy from Warner Music. Hi. And we have Stephen from MelodyVR. We have Rob from We Make Awesome Shit and the Bot platform. And we have Sam from StubHub. So we kind of have someone from the label background who's across a lot of the technology coming in. We have a virtual reality startup, a chatbot startup, and a company that's done virtual reality and chatbots. So that's kind of going to guide the things we talk about today a bit. We're not going to talk about flying cars, for example, because none of us have expertise in that. Yeah, we could. Maybe at the end. But we're going to talk about virtual reality, about chatbots. We're going to talk about the bigger picture of how the music industry is working with the startups producing this new technology. So we're going to start with VR, which has kind of been running throughout this conference, really, in a couple of sessions. There's demos downstairs. And the big question I want to dig into, which I think a lot of the audience want to as well, is what is VR for in music? Like, is it about live gigs looking around 3D degrees? Is it about music videos becoming immersive and interactive? Is it about going into Bjork's virtual world and experiencing her? What is it for? And I guess Stephen might be a good person to start with, because you're doing one of those things, and you presumably have thought about what you want to do and why.
We're actually doing all of those things. Just for a bit of context, we're a company called MelodyVR. I'm one of the co-founders. We're launching later this year the destination platform for music in virtual reality. We've been in the space for around about 3 years. My career prior to co-founding this was in the live music space. I was the commercial manager for Ibiza Rock. So seen the market change phenomenally over the last 5 to 10 years. We just saw a huge gap in the market for allowing a fan and an artist to engage in a way that had never previously been possible. When we launched the service, we've been fairly busy over the last 2 years. We've worked with around about 527, as of last night, international recording artists around the world, from The Who to Duran Duran to the Kaiser Chiefs to the London Symphony Orchestra and everything in between. And the service we're launching, and it kind of obviously tie it back into the question, there's 3 key elements that we see serves a space for music. The main sort of function of the app today is recorded content. So rather than going traditionally and going on Apple Music or Spotify, you can actually download an immersive experience which puts you back on stage with your favorite artist in virtual reality, 3D, binaural sound, absolutely everything in between. We also have engineered live streaming, which kind of comes onto the ticketing side. So in essence, when physical tickets sell out, we can switch to a digital ticket with a limitless capacity. So no more 4-minute sellouts of Adele's shows at Wembley. If 1 million people want to attend that show real time as it's happening, not actually for the best seat in the house, and actually completely unobtainable seat in the house, putting you on stage with your favourite artist. That's going to be a huge revenue driver for the industry and everyone involved and all rights holders. But interactive is something that we've been building out for the last 18 months. And that gives you physical presence. So rather than just being in a 360 VR environment, you can interact. You can, I say play with the artist, I'll word that carefully. You can interact with the artist. You could pick up a guitar next to your favourite. We'll use Ed as an example. You could learn to play a guitar next to Ed or learn how to play a loop. So I think it serves, in my opinion, and what we've built, it's all of those areas. I think each part serves a really important part of the ecosystem, and it's a journey from finding something you actually want to do and finding a favourite artist all the way through to the fully interactive. But as the market develops and the technology develops, you'll see a lot more interactivity in music videos, bespoke content. What we're working quite closely with Warner on a lot of stuff at the moment.
Because one of the things I've seen, I think, talking to people here, is this idea of VR skeptics often go, well, you're trying to recreate something that's amazing in the real world and it can only be a pale imitation. Whereas when people talk about it like you, it's more, we're trying to do something you can't do in the real world, either because you can't get to the gig or because you can't be in that place, or because you can't have Matt Bellamy on your table running around, like Sammy was saying earlier on, which is AR, not VR. Yeah. So it's kind of it's not like we're trying to recreate something just not quite as good.
Our kind of key driver from day one was it will never replace live. A few skeptics and bit of the background on the company, we took the company public last year, so we're the only virtual reality pure play publicly listed stock on any public market in the world. And we had quite a lot of people at that stage saying you're going to kill the live industry, and it's absolute rubbish. If you can go, you'll go. And we're fortunate enough to work quite closely with a guy that was involved the first time the Premier League and Sky got together. And after the first Premier League deal was done, many skeptics said attendance will decrease, people won't watch the game. Since the history of the Sky deal, every single year there's been an increase in season ticket sales, physical attendance and merch sales. So there's no reason why that won't be the same in music. And it's not so much the fact now of things selling out, but there's a fan frustration when you can't get a ticket. There's equally an artist frustration. Like the artists have written that album for 24 months locked away in a cupboard for as many people to see. So that ability to actually allow that to happen is exactly why VR exists.
Okay. Before we get into ticketing, I was going to ask Emmy, because you're at the label space, and I guess you're seeing people come in, and you could say, let's put all our marketing budget into VR this year. But you're presumably thinking, when is it going to be mainstream? Where is the value? Like, how are you feeling about this in value in terms of your artists?
I think we're seeing it as a really experimental time at the moment. It's really exciting. Technology is now breaking artists, and artists are now starting to break technology. But there's one stage to happen before that, and that's the race to win the hardware. So there's 5 or 6 companies out there at the moment that will probably slim down to 2 when the public decide who those people are. And Apple haven't released yet. They'll probably be one of the front runners. Google will be another front runner because it's well priced. So that needs to happen, and I think we're watching other industries really carefully to see creatively how they use VR as well, because as Stephen alluded to, the obvious choice is live, but actually when you get into being creative with VR, it's what can we do to increase that personalized relationship between the artist and fan, which is so special between the fan who idolizes the artist and the artist communicating very personally back to that fan. So that's the area that we're most excited about at the moment. And we're doing lots of experiments with Melody. Melody are a partner of ours, and we're talking very creatively about how we can be not the first to market, but the best to market with some of our artist stuff. So it's exciting.
It's one of the things that's stopping me buying one at the moment is I'm not sure which one's going to be the Betamax and which one's going to be VHS, like which ones will survive. And I wonder if that's one of the things we have to get over, that people, like consumers, are reluctant as well to put down 300 quid on something that might not be the one that wins.
Yeah, and it's a difficult race, as you say, like Betamax, more recently HD versus Blu-ray. Apple haven't released yet. I'm sure they will be releasing. I think it will be a front runner. And the Google product the Daydream product is a really good, very nicely priced product. Oculus is amazing, but it has its flaws. You have to be plugged into a computer at the moment, and that's just not practical. So I think the next 12 months are going to be really interesting to watch how that hardware plays out. And before we know it, everyone will be using VR.
Do you mind if I interject? And I completely agree with everything Emmy said. There'll certainly be some consolidation over the next 18 months. I think something that excites us, the platform we've built is completely agnostic to all hardware, so we're not going to be exposed to the ones that don't necessarily succeed. We've supported them in their journey, and where that ends up in 18 months is good for us and good for everyone involved. I think the PlayStation, I've seen a demo downstairs here today, which some of you might have experienced, it's an incredible headset, and what makes that exciting for the market, there's 54.2 million PS4s already in the world, with a hugely attentive audience that will always purchase new products that Sony release. So they can't build them fast enough. When they launched at the end of October in the UK, 1.1 million headsets were sold out in literally minutes. They can't physically build them fast enough. So PlayStation are working in a really good space, and for the early adopter and music specifically, the demographic of the PlayStation audience is really, really important to this ecosystem.
My 9-year-old came home the other day and said, I've read this thing about Minecraft being in virtual reality on the PS4. And I was like, oh, yeah, probably. And he's like, well, you have to get one then for me. So that might be what decides it. I mean, Sam, we talk about StubHub and ticketing, because there's a whole bunch of thoughts about VR and live and VR and tickets. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys have been doing. Is it to do with watching gigs, or is it to do with seeing the venues, or how are you doing?
So for us, obviously, being in the ticketing industry, our focus is to get people into the live events, so it's kind of a parallel of what Steve is saying. And what we want to make sure is that people are really clear of what they're getting for the value and for what the price they're paying, and also helping them get through the ticketing experience and the purchase experience seamlessly and effortlessly. So one of the barriers is, well, if I've got 2 tickets, one at £50 and one at £60, and one says obstructed view. What does that exactly mean? Should I pay the extra £10 or not? So what we're working on, and it's already live in lots of the venues in the US, and we're testing it still. But it's having the VR experience just when you're about to buy the ticket. And so we have a demo downstairs, but we can show you later. But basically, you're on the ticket page, and then you click on VR. So not everybody has a VR headset, and we obviously have a much cheaper hardware solution with the Google Cardboard box, but you can just also do it just directly on your phone, which is called virtual view. It's not real VR, but it helps you visualize the seat you're going to be in, and you can see the stage, and you can see how far you're going to be, and you can see the exits, and you can move around and see exactly how it's going to feel to sit in that place. And you can, if there's a pillar, you can get a real sense of what's going to be in your way. And that's kind of the concept. Is really to really, as we progress in VR, you can imagine that we could go into offering a mini preview or hearing what it's going to sound like from where you are. So it's really about helping the customer make the best choice about the ticket and the price, and make it easier for him or her to purchase. And obviously, we're still testing it, but we're seeing that people purchase more if they do have that help to be able to make sure that they're getting the right price.
I was going to say, I went to see the Rolling Stones at Twickenham Stadium from the toppermost seat in Twickenham, and it was like little stick men running around with a ghetto blaster playing Stone songs. And if I'd seen that before, well, I might not have bought a ticket when I did, but it would have guided my view, so I can see how that's... Yeah. I was going to ask about business models, and Rob, feel free to jump in, because I don't want you to have to wait till chatbots come along until... But, I mean, I'm interested in the business models, like, will people pay for VR music experiences? Or will this be sponsored advertising things? Will we subscribe to a service? It's so early days. I don't expect anyone here to have the answer. But what are your thoughts on? Is this going to be valuable?
Can I jump in, Stu? Sorry. Sorry to cut you off. I guess our business, we've been in a really unique space. So the reason we went public was to create a fair amount of finance and a decent war chest. So we've actually funded every single piece of content we've created in the last 3 years. Thousands and thousands of hours, equating to about 10,000 virtuality music experiences. And the reason we went for that approach, and working very closely with Warner and the other majors, is tech and music is it's a hard marriage at the start. If you come with a proposition that's going to cost the majors hundreds of thousands of pounds, it's an even higher barrier to entry. So we took the approach that we've become a content partner and a content creator and a rights holder on that content, and at the point of monetization, everyone gets paid out. So our pricing model at launch is very similar to the iTunes model. You can go in and find your favourite artist in a 3D world. Searching is something that, if we get onto later, we can talk to individually, is really important in VR, and analytics and emotions and how things make you feel. We're obviously not licensing a back catalogue of 30 million tracks. You can only create VR on the day that you first capture it. In essence, you could CG something, but it's going to cost you tens of millions of dollars, and you're never going to make a return on it. We're fairly confident, from hardware down, from artists down, from everyone in the rights holder chain, that there is an appetite. And say, to date, I know a developer on the West Coast that's making millions of dollars a week currently in a VR app, and it's okay. It's not life-changing, but it's because there's very, very little content out there currently. And
is that, I mean, as a label, is that quite exciting for you to be experimenting at a time when it is quite new? Like, I know that one of the worries is that there's not enough people there, but is that almost quite an exciting thing that you can get in early and maybe get something out and understand the market?
Absolutely. But there's so many new technologies and there's so many new opportunities out there. We have to be cautious and try and back the right ones, because we need to make an impact, and we don't want to waste our artists' time on technology that's not going to be successful. And so it's calculating the risk and calculating the reward and looking at the appetite from our fans as to what somebody wants. And I think people will pay if the content is creative and good enough and there is an appetite from fans. And we just have to... No one could have predicted Spotify was going to be this big 15 years ago. It didn't even exist. So who knows what's going to happen? But I think being a player in the game is what it's all about. And so we'll ride the tide as much as we can, just to try and understand the marketplace, if nothing else.
Well, look, we should jump completely ships on from virtuality to chatbots. Because the other thing that I as a journalist, I'm hearing a lot about, I'm writing about, and interested on. And so, Rob, you get to speak now.
Hello.
So some of you will have seen Rob's presentation yesterday. You may have seen the bot platform.
Yeah.
So you probably don't need to go into huge depth, but
sure.
The interesting for me about it is that you are making bots for artists that aren't just an experimental thing, they're making money from them right from the start.
Exactly that. So last month we launched a new product called the Bot Platform, which is specifically for Facebook Messenger. We started with a bot back in July 2016, which was for Hardwell. And we've seen some pretty incredible stats coming out of that, engagement rates, and just the amount of kind of discussions and interactions that we've seen. And as you say, the whole the fact that people are kind of actually getting some sort of return on their investment on chatbots. So we're seeing people selling merch through the chatbot, for example. Axel Ingrosso being the main one, they sold £10,000 worth of merchandise in the first 3 months of having the bot. So I think that's the thing for us is how can we harness new technology in a way that's actually going to provide value and hopefully make money. A couple of years back, we had a call with a guy called Steve Rennie, who is a manager in the US. He managed Incubus, the alternative rock band in America. And he said, we went through the various kind of campaigns that we did, and we were trying to impress him with, we did this, that, and the other for this artist. And he said, to be honest, the coolest thing you can do is if I give you $500, if you come up with $501, that is the coolest thing you can do. So we went away and thought, how can we achieve that? And ever since we saw the kind of launch of the Facebook Messenger platform, we kind of saw an avenue that we thought could provide value in a monetary format.
I'm kind of interested in the fact that these things, like the academic history of chatbots, I did a piece on research, my head's full of it, is like trying to make things that pretend to be human and fool humans. But then these bots are not pretending to be the star.
That's
like,
it,
it's
yeah.
Kind of you understand that you're not talking to Hardwell or... This
is the thing, and I was chatting to someone earlier about this because they asked me the exact same question in my talk yesterday. They're not pretending to, and I don't think they should pretend to be the artist because that's just it's too much of a mixed message, right? These are kind of bot versions or automated or computer versions of the artist in a way. They can provide information such as tour dates, tell you about new album launches directly to your Messenger account, which is I think that's really exciting as a kind of new piece of tech. This isn't kind of a message that just goes out generally on a Facebook timeline. This is something that goes to a person. And we're seeing a 99% read rate on messages, which is, I think that's pretty mental. I don't know if people are getting that on like email opens.
In my inbox, certainly.
Well, exactly that, yeah. So it's exciting.
And Sam, you've been doing some stuff around bots, and ticketing and bots seems to be quite an interesting area.
Yes, so we are pretending to be the ticketing person behind the counter, unlike pretending to be the artist. So I think for me, chatbots is really the next generation of search engines, and it's more powerful than search engines in many ways. First, it's there where the consumers are, and as you know, most people spend their time online in messenger tools now. It's overtaken Facebook, social media. I think in terms of daily users, there's billions of monthly users. I think it's 1 billion on Facebook.
1 billion monthly active users on Facebook Messenger.
Same thing on WhatsApp. There's like, and in Asia they have WeChat, which is also like 600 million, I think, monthly users. So most people spend their time online in Messenger products. So that's one of the advantages of chatbot. The other one is the conversation. So I've got a 3-year-old boy, and I'm here in Amsterdam. I've got an hour to kill, and I want to buy a present for him. So in the normal world, I would go and ask somebody and say, I'd like to buy something for my son. I've got 1 hour, and they say, well, how much time do you have? What kind of price are you looking for? What does he like? And there's a conversation that helps you refine what you're looking for. And search engines don't offer that today, right? Search engines are, I have to type in a keyword, that doesn't work, try something else, and I'm having to do all the work, and I'm not being led. And chatbots, the end goal for chatbots is that it's a conversation. So we launched our chatbot in the US last year, and the goal again is for ticketing, right? So what do you want to go see? When do you want to see it? You can have a conversation with the chatbot, and then it can come up with suggestions. Hey, do you like this kind of music? This price. Here you can buy the tickets. And then the third thing that's better than search engines is that you can do this with friends at the same time. So one of the pains today, right, is if I want to go to a live event, it's always, you rarely go by yourself, you always go with friends. And if I have to say, like, I have to call Amy and Jay, and I have to figure out what they both like and what kind of prices they want to pay, and I'm looking online at the same time, and it's like really, really painful experience. Whereas with chatbots, I can just create with the Skype. Right now we're on Skype, so with the StubHub chatbot on Skype, you can just invite a few friends into the chat and the StubHub chatbot, and then you can be asking the chatbot, and everybody can ask questions, just like you're teleported all outside the ticket office, right? And you're all looking at the events you want to go to, and then you're discussing, and then you say bye, and that's it. And so you're really trying to make the purchase experience easier, get more people into venues. There's so many venues that are not full, that don't sell out. So that's kind of the idea that we're approaching with chatbots.
And this kind of, this idea of, we can go off into full-on geek tech now. This idea of conversational interfaces is quite interesting to me, because we've got chatbots, we've got Amazon Echo. Now I can talk to that and say, play me happy 90s indie music, and it'll play music. Like, we seem to be in different areas, we're going towards talking to our technology more naturally, rather than...
Yeah, it's kind of the next step, isn't it? I think Google predicts that in 2020, they'll have more voice searches than text searches, this is just in 3 years, right? It sounds crazy, but that's their prediction. So it's kind of the next stage, isn't it?
I think tech is becoming, especially as a designer, I'm very aware that tech is becoming more and more invisible to the end user. So it's really interesting with things like Amazon Echo. There's no interface. There's no user interface. You just talk to it. And it's kind of like the same with chatbots, right, or bots, because you don't have to download an app. You probably already got a messaging app that you can use for it. Like the technology, we're just building the technology into the area or into the place that you already existing. So it's becoming kind of, we're trying to figure out ways that are kind of less annoying, I guess, for people to interact with new tech. And maybe in ways that they're unaware that they're interacting with new technology as well.
I think also with all these little screens we have and the little keyboards, it's kind of the next step, right? Voice is much easier than typing on a little keyboard, and that's kind of the...
This interests me from a VR perspective, because from a bot's perspective, you don't have to buy anything. Presumably, you've already got a device, you've already probably got a messaging app, right? But with VR, I'm guessing that you need to have a headset to start.
It's a good question. Something that we're quite aware of is early stage tech. I kind of describe it as Game Boys over here, PS4s over here, and we're kind of about this stage at the moment. It's already incredibly compelling and incredible technology in the few years we've worked in it. Where it's going to be in another 24 months, who knows? But yeah, there's a journey, that's for sure. I think we touched on sort of the 2D 360 linear. As part of the ecosystem, all the work we do will also be available on artist socials, label partner socials, so you can push out that stepping stone. I guess, in essence, yes, but we all have a smartphone in our pocket. And I think for me, what will win the race is, yes, the Rifts, the HTCs, the PlayStations are incredible, and they'll play a really important part in the ecosystem. But we all have a VR device in our pocket already, and it is our smartphone. Okay. So that is your stepping stone. The headset, be it a Google Cardboard, be it a Samsung Gear, is in essence the enabler. Samsung are now already giving out the headsets for free. They've come down from £100 to £49 in the last 6 months alone. They're just about to come out with Generation 4, which includes a hand controller. So again, it's not clunky, it's not head. So to a degree, yes, but the actual physical device you already own and it's sitting in your pocket.
I was going to ask Emmy, this is like a question for you, but probably everyone can join in. As a label, there are all these things like, you need to do something VR and chatbots and all these new technologies. And yet, within that, there's going to be bad companies and good companies. There'll be like really rubbish chatbots. I signed up to one. I signed up to a bunch of them when I was researching it. And one of them was for an American female singer. And it kept messaging me at 4 a.m. with her latest Instagram snap. Because in whatever, she was in America, so there it was not too late to be. And I one night left my notifications on, and my phone beeped to me, and it was just like, hey, here's my Instagram snap. And it was really annoying. Like, as a label, how do you, I suppose, judge things with the right degree of skepticism and excitement and figure out what's the good people to work with?
I guess there's 2 stages to that. So I head up a division called Firepit Technology, and we are essentially an internal lab to experiment with new tech in order to be able to advise the labels on which are the best partners to work with and make recommendations about how they use the technology. So we have a lot of fun in our office. But it's also our job to rifle through every single company that wants to work in music, and there are a lot of them, in order to understand how that benefits us. And that sounds like a very selfish answer, but actually we're here to represent our artists. And so we're not harsh, but we're quite inquisitive when we talk to companies, because we need to make a relationship work between the artist and the fan. Otherwise, we have no hope in, making that fan a lifelong fan. And so we strive constantly to have an emotional connection and to make someone feel something when they're ultimately listening to the music or whether they're interacting with a fan. And I just want to touch on the chatbots really quickly, because it's a really interesting concept for us, Firepit Technology, because I'm incredibly excited by them. I think, as these guys touched on earlier, they will replace search, and we're experimenting very much in the early stages whether they might replace websites. Obviously, there's a vanity URL that needs to be captured, but actually, whether it's lyrics that are being searched, which is the most normal, biggest search term when it comes to an artist that's established, whether it's searching for live dates, that's all very fine because it's very functional. But crossing over into trying to imitate an artist is an absolute no-no, because that emotional connection's gone between fan and artist. And if you not break a fan's heart, but if you break that bond between the fan and the artist, then you've potentially lost them forever. And so we're trying to, in the lab at the moment, trying to experiment with what's okay and what's very obviously not an artist, but it's still an engaging interaction, and what's not okay. And we feel like we're at a stage where that's ready now. We've released one of our chatbots. We did a project with Total Ape. We used video in the chatbot because we just wanted to experiment on how that was engaging. But we're experimenting a lot more, and we're learning all the time. And so the lab is very much the label's centre of excellence to help them identify the best partners, the best technology, and the recommended ways of using that technology, whether it's creatively or strategically, or it's a quick win, or it's potentially a multi-million-pound opportunity.
Which sounds quite fun, because I'm not going to put you on the spot for the music industry's historic failure, but like in the old days, the perception in the tech world was often that if you were a startup with a whizzy new technology, you'd go into a label and they'd say, do you need license? If not, get out. If you do, give us loads of money and equity. Whereas now, I get the impression, and this is a very soft question, but the impression now is it's much more labels are looking for partnerships and to learn together. And it's not just about, I'm sure it still happens in places, but there is more of a cooperation there, I guess.
Yeah, I think historically, it's quite right, exactly as you say. And we're a really forward-thinking company. I think Warner is an interesting company because we want to help our partners. We've just, it's a good time to mention it, but we've just done a partnership with an incubation acceleration company called Blink, and they're going to help us identify the best possible startups, because it's crazy intimidating when you go out there to try and find partners to work with, because everyone wants to work in music, because everyone has a connection with music. And so Blink are coming on board to help advise us on which partnerships are best in their field, and we're working very locally at the moment, so we're focusing on London-based startups, because geographically it's much easier to look someone in the eye and have a conversation and start that creativity than it is having a series of emails at 2 a.m. like...
We had that earlier on, didn't we?
Yeah.
The worst thing.
And so we're starting locally to see how it goes, but we're meeting all sorts of tech companies, tech that hasn't been introduced yet, along with solutions that challenge everything that's out in the marketplace. And it's about trying to identify how we can help them, whether it's mentoring, whether it's investment, and how we can work together and be a better partner to these guys, because I think the music industry in general has had a bad rap. It's, we need to be paid loads of money or we're not working with you, but actually we need to learn from these startups, because they've got an awful lot to offer the music industry, and so we need to be better partners to them, and that's what Firepit Technology is aiming to do over the next 12 months.
And I mean, Stephen, I have to put you on the spot now. I saw your eye twitch a bit when I was asking the question, but I know you guys have a partnership with Warner, so you don't have to say anything about them. But is this generally like, and also Rob, actually, and also Sam, because you're from the tech world, like, is the music industry good to work with? Is the music industry doing the right things? Are there
Say nice things.
Are there still things it can do to, I suppose, are there still problems, or are there still things it could improve on?
We've been fortunate, I think, without sounding too ignorant or arrogant, we've come up with something that's pretty cool. So I think if you're good at what you do, anyone in any industry would be naive to not speak to you. We didn't bring it to the labels or to the majors until we knew we had a solution and a product, and we've got an end-to-end business from the camera creation that we built ourselves to the post-production, to the stitching, to the licensing. As Emmy touched on, historically, it's been a tough space. Technology is moving incredibly quick, and I think the music industry is aligning a lot closer. Certainly in my experience, I know we sit in a fairly unique space. Being the only people doing what we do in the way that we're doing it, we are fortunate. But we've had a fantastic experience from Warner, Sony and Universal. So sorry, I might not be the best person to answer that, but they're amazing.
I'd hate to break up a partnership live on stage. A slightly different question for you, Rob, because you're all more on the artist tools side. And I remember there was a blog post a few years ago by a guy who ran a couple of artist tool startups, and he was saying labels won't pay for tools if they can help it, and artists can't afford to. Right. And he was quite down about the idea. So how have you found, have you found that labels are willing to, do they have the budgets to do this? Are they willing to do they see the value of what you're doing and willing to pay for it? Or is there still?
I think they see the value, but it's just making sure that, traditionally, We Make Awesome Shit has been a kind of creative campaigns agency. So an artist or a management company or a label would come to us with a brief, and they would suggest, like, can we use this technology? Can we use augmented reality, for example? And we might think, well, that's not really, the best tool for the job. Like, we kind of get what you're trying to do, but maybe augmented reality isn't the best thing. So I think a lot of it is just like having a conversation with those kind of tech companies, like We Make Awesome Shit. The other day we had an innovation day at Sony Music. They brought in lots of different agencies in. Each kind of team had different artists, and we tried to kind of create together in a collaborative way. And I guess that's the key thing, really, is collaboration. The kind of correct thing for the campaign. Have I answered your question? I don't know.
I think that makes sense, right? I mean, there's all these shiny new technologies out there. Everybody talks about it. It sounds really cool, and then let's do something with it, and it's completely inappropriate, right? So you have to really try to answer a need of a customer or an artist, or you have to, put it in our. For us, for example, we said, we have to do something with VR. Let's think about it. And first, we put it on the very beginning of our user flow. We put the VR experience, and nobody cares about looking at what it looks like from your seat at the very beginning of your user experience. You want it when you're just about to purchase the ticket. So, I think it's just about making sure these are great technologies. We have to look into them because it's the kind of next generation. But we have to make sure that we're using them, finding the right way to use them to enhance the user's experience, the customer's experience, the artist's experience. And that's the key thing, right? Otherwise, you're just going to be out there, and people say, just like you said, the bot is pinging you at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you don't want that, right?
Yeah. I remember the first wave of augmented reality when it was like, point your phone at this chocolate bar, and a goblin will leap out and pitch advertising at you. And those things won awards at like advertising shows, and then you thought, I'd never want to, why? Yeah. So and that was that thing of like tech for the sake of it, which can be the trap to fall into. I guess we should do something cool with this.
So
a chatbot isn't necessarily the right tool for the job, but it's finding the right tech for the right purpose. That's what I was saying.
I mean, augmented reality, again, like you said, it's like gimmick, but you could see it. I'm in a venue, and I used augmented reality to find my way through a crowd because I'm looking for the exit or the toilet. That's the kind of stuff that could be useful. Yeah. You just always have to bring it back to how can I help make it easier for the customer and enhance its experience.
A massive arrow to the bar that has no one on it.
Exactly.
We have about 8 minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience? Because I'm happy to kind of throw it out. I have one at the back there, if that's okay, from Claire. Do you want to wait for the mic so you can record you? And we'll share our mics along.
Hey Rob, I love the bot platform. That was great. I've spoken to Sid about it, and I just wanted to know: is the 10,000 merch that you talk about, was that on top of what they would usually sell, or was that so that's above?
That was exclusively through the bot.
But
If that makes
I understand it's exclusively through the bot, but for example, if that's what they normally sell and they just sell it by sending out on socials or email, then it's a slightly different result.
All I know is that it was 10,000 exclusively through the bot. So as a mechanic, that's how the money was made, essentially.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions around the? Otherwise, I can carry on. And we could come back to the whole voice thing, because I am interested in Amazon Echo, and it seems like the one whizzy technology that suddenly a lot of people in the industry have got in their house because it only costs £100. And it makes me think about what is the future of music if the next interface is saying, give me stuff. Because the other day I was trying to play Jaguar Ma. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but Amazon didn't know what I was talking about. And I was going, Jaguar Ma, Jaguar Ma, and it's saying all these weird things. But then I talked to Amazon, they were saying, yeah, we're actually creating new formats because people are talking to it. So we're creating this idea of Song of the Day where you say, play me the Song of the Day, and Lady Gaga pops up telling you about her favourite song. So is this going to be quite interesting? Is this where maybe Spotify and Apple Music are going to end up doing things that aren't just tapping on a thing or clicking on a thing?
I'm really interested in kind of behavioural data. So obviously we're chatting to these things and data's being collected, right? And as we move forward with technology, you're going to find Amazon Echo in your car or in different places around in your lives. So we're going to continually kind of join the dots as such. And maybe it will realize that when I'm in the car, I like to listen to this kind of music. Or maybe the data from my watch is going to show that when my heartbeat is at this rate, I would prefer to listen to this kind of music. So it's really interesting how things are kind of converging in terms of technology and the kind of avenues that we might go, especially in terms of behavioral data.
Yeah, I think those are the two things. The next generation is voice, and what Rob is saying is personalization, right? Collecting data about the users and suggesting what we think you're gonna like. So, for example, in the ticketing, in the future, it could be I'm speaking to Alexa or Google, or the Google Voice or Google Home or whatever, and say, hey, I want to do something this weekend with friends, and then it would come up and say, well, I know you're friends with Amy and Jay. And I know that you like to spend about $100 on a concert, and I know that your favorite artist is in town this weekend, and I can create a conversation, call them up, and we can all have a chat about it, and you can all decide online. That's kind of the seamless, that's kind of the end goal of where we want to go with that kind of technology, I think.
I think voice is incredibly exciting. Last Thursday, Ed Sheeran's birthday, when you said good morning to Alexa, it gave you some stats about him, the fact that it was his birthday, the fact that he's currently got two number one and number two single in the UK, and it's fun, it's interactive. I'm truly excited about it. What fascinates me, I think Amazon is an incredibly exciting company. Alexa came off the back of a brainstorm that went wrong, and so what the hell that brainstorm was about, I don't know, but I would love to know. But Amazon started with music as its first product, music and books, and now the next iteration of technology is lending itself to music. So music's always at the forefront of everything that's changing, and I feel that's really exciting. I'm incredibly excited, and Apple haven't mentioned it, but they will blow shit out the park when they get their stuff right, because they've got an app store, they've got hardware, they've got software, they've got so much data to personalize your experience through voice. I think it's going to be incredibly scary and incredibly impressive when they decide to come out with voice, especially their streaming service Flying. They do things very well, and so Amazon have got the advantage at the moment because they're first to market. But Apple will be brilliant at marketing the voice technology because they're very good at marketing very challenging technology. And then Google need to catch up. But it's an incredibly exciting time. And alongside that, we're gathering more and more data to be able to personalize things. People are never going to have the same experience with music again in a positive way.
Do you know what the thing with me, the personalization thing is so what Amazon Echo does to me, it's just when my therapy session now, but every so often when I stop it forgets it's listening to Spotify, whatever, and it goes, and I go play, and it goes, oh, I've got a station you might like, Pitbull. And it's now got a collection of varied screams from me, but it hasn't learnt. And that if anyone's a Pitbull fan, I'm so sorry.
Weirdly, I had an interesting. I had a track by an artist that I won't mention, and I was like, Alexa, never play that bloody track again. And she came back and said, noted, you do not like this artist.
Oh wow!
And so I've never had a track by this artist ever again.
Yeah. So is that a big thing, like personalization, like the fact that these things, if they get it wrong, to be able to sort that out? Because, like when I get, this is not, I can't remember who it is. There's one ticketing company that send me emails saying, oh, we thought you'd like to know Barry Manilow's playing the O2. And they're going, I don't know what you've got that makes you think I like Barry Manilow. When they're
The fact that you've been to every concert.
yeah. How have you got my fan club number? But it seems like they're thinking hard about this, how they, if they personalise it, how they also can fix any tweaks.
I think the interesting thing is they haven't incorporated Amazon's data about you yet. And once they do that, it's unstoppable. And that's what Apple is so good at doing. They connect their data sets in order to be able to sell you more shit. And it's brilliant stuff. And so once Amazon do that, and once Google connect, like the world's just going to change as we know it. And artists will be talking to us and will think they're real, but actually it's probably a bot in the background that mimics their voice, which is going to be scary. But technology is moving so fast, we just need to make sure that we're keeping up with it for the right reasons.
Yeah, Pitbull's going to pop up and have a go at me for screaming. Well, I mean, have we got any other questions from the crowd? We've got one here then. And then we'll have one at the back there, and that'll be it, I think.
Do you think with the voice activation stuff, we're going to end up being in a world that's very noisy, everyone talking to their tech all the time?
I think it's like every technology. I mean, phone hasn't disappeared when we started texting, and I don't see people in the tube or in the train talking to their phone, but you do see people talking at home. So I think it's, again, a parallel. I don't know what you think.
How well adopted the Amazon Echo. My mic seems to work. It's kind of amazing how well adopted Amazon Echo has been, right? Like the first time I got it, I was kind of I found it a bit strange to talk to it, but ever since I've had it, I've just been like, well, just ask Alexa. However, there have been situations like if I have people around for dinner and we're mid-conversation, do I want to suddenly say, Alexa, can you shut the fuck up, please? Or, it's kind of like Google Glasses where there are situations where it's not really apt to be using it, but...
There is like a Silicon Valley Brit, because I think British people are a bit nervous about talking to devices in public. I think maybe it's not to generalise about the entire nation, but I think in Silicon Valley, and it's that thing about around the world, maybe some things will be...
I want to challenge that because selfie culture was not acceptable 3 years ago, and now you cannot walk in London without someone taking a selfie. So yes, right now we're quite reserved as a nation, but I think in a couple of years it will be fine. And genuinely, I cannot wait until I can go into Starbucks and talk to Alexa and my coffee gets made as an Internet of Things project rather than having to talk to a human being. Not because I don't like talking to human beings, but I'm genuinely excited about everything being completely automated. It's like living in Back to the Future. How cool is that?
And Alexa will get your name right on the cup as well.
Exactly.
We have one more question at the back there, I think, and then that'll be it. But,
Bowie. I had one. Do you feel that artists could be a lot closer to this innovation and, going on the thing of trying to find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist? Do the panel think that artists could be closer to these ideas right from their inception?
That's Sam, right? Yeah. Well, there's Buzz Jam, right?
That's not what I was going for. But.
Yes, I think definitely. I mean, the best thing that the best experience we've ever had is when an artist has directly collaborated with us. The ideas that come out of direct collaboration with an artist, in our experience, has always been really good. You guys set up Buzz Jam, which is a project that brings together tech teams and artists over a weekend, and they kind of work together to create projects. I think that's fantastic, and I wish that artists and tech companies were more directly related, definitely.
Can I add a little bit? I'm completely with Rob on that one. I think everything we do, again, artists by nature are incredibly creative people, so we'd all be really naive to sit here and think we know best. We're providing a solution that's driven by an industry that's made of artists. So I think the collaboration is key. And again, touching on things we're doing with Warner, we've done amazing stuff sort of as a collaboration over the last 2 years, now in a formal partnership, the projects we're working on are just literally mind-blowing. You know, it's a whole nother level because you've got artists buy-in from day one, and they're like, this is how I want that to look, this is how it could be. And you know, even with, we've got a fairly big dev team, and Emma's got a massive team, but sometimes an artist will say something and you're like, shit, that's actually a really good idea. You know, you just never would have thought of it. So I think, yeah, 100% amazing question, and yeah, definitely.
I don't have a massive team. We are a very slimline team of 4 serving all the labels. But one of the functions of Firepit Technology is to help educate artists and encourage artists to be experimental. So we have artists in the Firepit constantly to brainstorm ideas, to show them and demo technology to them, and to ensure that they feel informed, because once they understand a technology, they tend to be quite excited about it, but it's trying to break down that barrier that it's okay to not understand everything that's going on. That's why we're in the building, and that's why we're here to showcase and handhold you as much or as little as you want through. It's quite a scary time being an artist, because you've got to do so much more than just be brilliant on stage, write brilliant songs. You have to be really savvy in every element of business now, and so we're trying to encourage our artists to think of us as a support network too.
Good. I've been waiting for Chris to sidle on and suddenly appear, and here
I was
he
going to
is.
come and sit at your feet as standard.
I mean, thank you very much. That's been really good. And yeah, thank you very much, Tim.
Thanks, guys.